Your phone, your laptop, your car, your dishwasher, your medical devices, your ATM, your refrigerator, your television, the AI tools your company uses to do business. What do all of these things have in common? Every single one of them depends on tiny silicon chips, semiconductors that are manufactured primarily in one place on Earth, a 14,000 square mile island called Taiwan. And right now in 2026, China is watching that island harder than it has in decades. The U.S. and China just delayed their planned summit. China's military budget just hit $278 billion, another 7% increase. War games in Washington show that a Chinese invasion of Taiwan is survivable, but at a cost that would make your head spin. Today we're asking the question that Wall Street, the Pentagon, and every major tech company in the world is quietly dreading. What if China takes Taiwan? The Silicon Shield. Why Taiwan is the most important island on Earth. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, TSMC, is not just a company, it is the single most strategically critical corporation on the planet. TSMC produces approximately 90% of the world's most advanced semiconductor chips, not 50%, not 70%, 90%. Its customers include Apple, AMD, Nvidia, Qualcomm, and virtually every major technology company on Earth. Think about what that means in practice. When you buy an iPhone, the brain of that phone, the chip that makes it work, was almost certainly made in Taiwan. When a car company builds an electric vehicle, the semiconductors controlling its battery management, its safety systems, its infotainment, made in Taiwan. The data centers powering ChatGPT, Google, Amazon Web Services, made in Taiwan. Military drones, missile guidance systems, radar, made in Taiwan. This is what geopolitical experts call Taiwan's Silicon Shield. The idea is that global dependence on Taiwanese chips is so profound that no rational actor would risk destroying that supply, not even China, which would suffer enormously. China's own economy is deeply integrated with Taiwanese semiconductor supply chains. A war would devastate both sides. Bloomberg Economics estimated the total cost of a Chinese invasion at $10 trillion, roughly 10% of global GDP. That dwarfs COVID. That dwarfs the 2008 financial crisis. That dwarfs Ukraine. Where things stand in 2026, the pressure is building. Let's get current. What's actually happening between China and Taiwan right now in 2026? In December 2025, China conducted its largest military exercises around Taiwan since 2022. The People's Liberation Army simulated a full naval blockades, live-fire exercises that included, for the first time since 2022, launching long-range projectiles directly into the Taiwan Strait. The U.S. State Department called it unnecessarily provocative. China said it was a legitimate response to U.S. arms sales. And about those arms sales, Trump approved an $11 billion weapons package for Taiwan, to Beijing's fury. Xi Jinping personally warned Trump not to proceed. In an extraordinary moment, Trump publicly admitted he was discussing the arms sales with Xi, something U.S. lawmakers called alarming and a violation of the U.S.'s 6 long-standing assurances to Taiwan about not consulting Beijing on arms transfers. Meanwhile, a leaked Chinese database revealed that a state-affiliated firm had compiled detailed surveillance files on 23 million Taiwanese people, essentially Taiwan's entire population, including 170 politicians, 1,500 companies, 13,000 religious groups, and 24,000 civic organizations. This isn't just military pressure. This is a systematic preparation to understand, influence, and eventually control Taiwanese society. The Trump-Xi summit, originally planned for late March, was postponed because Trump prioritized the Iran war. China said it agreed to the delay. But China is using the window quietly and strategically, stockpiling oil before the conflict, pressuring neighbors economically, studying U.S. military tactics from the Iran war to apply to future conflicts. The invasion scenario, what actually happens to your life? Let's run the scenario. China invades Taiwan. What happens next? Not in Taipei, but in your home, your town, your wallet. Day 1, stock markets around the world crash. The S&P 500 fell 55% from peak to trough during the 2008 financial crisis. Analysts suggest a Taiwan conflict could be worse, particularly for tech stocks, which have been inflated by the AI boom built entirely on Taiwanese chips. Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, Google, all would be in free fall. Your 401k or pension fund would take a historic hit. Weeks 2 through 6, the semiconductor shortage hits production lines. In 2021, a relatively minor chip shortage caused global car production to slump 26%. Automakers couldn't finish vehicles sitting on assembly lines because they were missing $5 chips. A Taiwan conflict would remove not 5% of chip supply, but 90% of advanced chip supply. Bloomberg Economics modeled a 60% reduction in smartphone production in a blockade scenario and 85% in a full war scenario. Your next phone? Maybe 3 or 4 years away. Your new car? Same. Months 2 through 12, the economic depression deepens. The U.S. economy would shrink by an estimated 6.7%, the worst contraction since the Great Depression. China's economy would shrink by 16.7%. Global GDP would fall by more than 10%. Unemployment would spike. Credit markets would tighten. The kind of economic pain that takes a generation to recover from. And critically, this doesn't just affect tech. Oil would spike again. Food would spike again. Shipping, because the Taiwan Strait alone handles 50% of global container traffic, would be choked. Every supply chain on Earth would feel it. The chip strategy, can we replace Taiwan? The U.S., Europe, Japan, and South Korea have been desperately trying to answer one question: can we build enough chip-making capacity outside of Taiwan to survive a crisis? The short answer is not fast enough. The CHIPS and Science Act committed $280 billion to rebuild American semiconductor manufacturing. TSMC is building a plant in Phoenix, Arizona, and is committed to $100 billion more in U.S. investment under Trump. That's real progress. But there's a brutal manufacturing reality. You cannot replicate decades of Taiwanese expertise overnight. Labor laws are different. Costs are higher. The specialized knowledge baked into TSMC's workforce took 40 years to develop. TSMC's founder, Morris Chang, has been blunt about this. The Arizona fabs cost 50% more to operate than Taiwan facilities and won't match Taiwan's leading-edge production for years. Japan is investing in domestic semiconductor manufacturing through subsidies and partnerships with TSMC. South Korea has Samsung. The EU has its own chip strategy. But even optimistically, none of these alternatives can fill a Taiwan-sized hole in the global supply chain within any time frame that matters for the next crisis. Some U.S. officials have even floated the idea of threatening to destroy TSMC facilities if China invades to deny Beijing control of the technology. A congressman from Massachusetts made exactly this argument publicly. Whether that's a bluff or not, the fact that it's being said tells you everything about how desperate the strategic situation has become. As one researcher put it, the world could be set back 20 years in technology development overnight. The expert debate, when does China move? Experts are genuinely divided on the timeline, and that uncertainty itself is part of what makes this so dangerous. A survey of 79 former U.S. government officials and top China experts by CSIS, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, found that 41% believe the risk of a U.S.-China military conflict over Taiwan has increased over the past year. The South China Sea is seen as the most likely immediate flashpoint. China against the Philippines, which is far less militarily capable than Taiwan. But experts also see a three seas linkage, simultaneous or sequential pressure across the East China Sea, Taiwan Strait, and South China Sea that could create chain reactions. China's military budget has grown 7% every year for nearly a decade. Its navy is now the largest in the world by number of ships. It has been developing nuclear submarines specifically designed to restrict U.S. naval movements in the Western Pacific during a Taiwan conflict. And it is studying in real time the U.S.-Israel war with Iran, analyzing U.S. targeting, drone tactics, AI integration, and air defense penetration, preparing for the next conflict with a superpower. The one thing that may be holding China back, the $10 trillion cost. Xi Jinping is watching his own economy. Chinese GDP growth is slowing. Youth unemployment is high. The property sector is in crisis. A war that costs China 16.7% of GDP would be an extraordinary gamble. But leaders throughout history have started wars when domestic pressure made foreign adventure seem like the better option. Don't count on economics alone to keep the peace. What this means for you? Here's your takeaway. The Taiwan situation is not a distant geopolitical chess game. It is a live wire connected directly to your phone in your pocket, the car in your driveway, the paycheck in your bank account, and the retirement fund you're counting on. Pay attention to the Trump-sized summit when it finally happens, because the deals made or not made there will shape the risk level for years. Pay attention to any escalation in the South China Sea or around Taiwan. And if you work in tech, automotive, or any manufacturing sector that depends on advanced electronics, your company should already be building supplier diversification plans. The companies that survive a Taiwan shock will be the ones that prepared. Most of all, understand this: the status quo in the Taiwan Strait is fragile. It has held for 77 years, but the forces pressing against it, military, economic, political, nationalistic, have never been stronger. But we are living through the most dangerous period in cross-strait relations since 1949. And unlike most geopolitical stories, this one has a direct line from Beijing to your breakfast table. Subscribe and stay informed. And comment below, do you think the U.S. should formally commit to defending Taiwan? Yes or no?